Welcome to this council meeting. I'll call the room to order, please. Thank you. A very warm welcome to this first meeting of 2025. We're looking forward to another amazing year this year at Kapiti Coast District Council. Welcome to elected members, councillors, community boards, council staff. We've got a very full public gallery today as well. Also welcome to our iwi representatives, Frank Hippolyte representing Te Atiawa and Kim Tahiwi, Nahapu Ngāti Raukawa. So very warm welcome to everybody in the room, and I'll pass over to Councillor Handford for the council blessing, please.
Ia mātou e whiriwhiri ana i ngā take kei mua i o mātou aroaro. E pono ana mātou ka kaha tonu ki te whakapau mahara huapai mō ngā hapore e mahi nei mātou. Me kaha hoki mātou katoa kia whaihua kia tōtika tā mātou mahi, a mā te maia te tiro whakamua me te hihiri, ka taia, te arahi I roto I te kotahitanga me te aroha. As we deliberate on the issues before us, we trust that we will reflect positively on the communities we serve. Let us all seek to be effective and just so that with courage, vision and energy, we provide positive leadership in a spirit of harmony and compassion.
Thank you, Councillor Handford. Before we move on with our agenda today, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge kaumātua of Ngāti Haumia, Carl Farrell, who passed away this last week. The family today are welcoming the community for his tangi, and they have been welcoming members of the community for the past few days. So we think of them, and we think of the community of Paekakariki, and we think of Carl's tupuna, who have long been on that land. And we reflect on the struggle to provide some appropriate recompense for the land that they lost. And that struggle will continue. And we also reflect on Carl himself and the incredible contribution that he's made to the community in Paekakariki. Nothing has happened in Paekakariki without him being there these past years as he's been kaumātua. And also we remember Carol Reihana, who had that role before him. Kua hinga te tōtura o te wainui a tānei. And I'd like us all, please, to stand and acknowledge Carl for a moment. Ngā mihi nui. Okay, we move on to item 3, apologies. We've received no apologies. Does anybody want to pass on any apologies for this meeting? There are none. Any declarations of interest on agenda items? Councillor Warwick?
I wish to declare that I submitted to the EPA fast track process on 33 Main Highway Otaki, and declare that the consideration of the matter today I approach with an open mind.
Thank you, Councillor Warwick. We have nothing under 5 or 6, so we move on to item 7, public speaking time for items relating to the agenda. We have a number of public speakers who have indicated a wish to speak today. So I'm going to try and keep public speaking time quite tight today. Individuals have 3 minutes. People representing a group have 5 minutes. And I would ask elected members, please, to keep questions strictly relevant to the considerations that are before us today, and in particular around the Moy Place subdivision, the new considerations that are in front of us today. So with that, we'll move on to our first public speaker, who's Harriet Fraser. Speaking to item 10.2. Welcome, Harriet.
Good morning. So, my name's Harriet Fraser. I was engaged by the Moy Place residents to help from a traffic engineering point of view. My original assessment was attached to the previous material for your November meeting, and my qualifications are all set out in there. I'd just like to say that I have, in terms of qualifications, I have 27 years experience as a traffic engineer and transport planner in New Zealand, and specifically in the Wellington region. I'm based in Upper Hutt and am at present a sole practitioner traffic engineer. I work for developers and for councils and occasionally for submitters, and I also am a hearing commissioner for resource consent hearings. So I'd like to address the paragraphs 11 to 14 of the report brought back to council, and I understand that the comments from the Moy Place residents, they've been circulated to you probably fairly late yesterday. So at point 17 of that document, I comment that the 2006 Fleming subdivision with the 200 residential lots considered a larger area than just the Moy Estate site, and that as set out in my August 2023 review, I consider at that time it was probably likely that the Moy Estate site would accommodate around 40 residential lots, because at the moment the SUAV, the density of the residential development within SUAV and Moy Place they're around 800 metres squared or more, the house sites, and these the size that comes through with the Moy Estates is just over 200. So we've got a much stronger density, and so therefore a larger number of houses and more traffic. So and the context at the time in 2006 was State Highway 1 running along the site frontage and an expectation that it would continue to do so. But nevertheless, a reserve strip was included at the end of Moy Place, which has prevented the automatic creation of a road, even in that earlier context. The paragraphs 12 and 13 mainly focus on intersection capacity in terms of assessing the adequacy of the road network. And I note that the Moy Place cross-section, with the additional traffic, it would be expected, typically based on the New Zealand standards, that you would have footpath on both sides and parking clear of the movement lane, with the additional traffic that would come from the Moy Estates site. That this can be, some extra road space can be created with no stopping lines, but this is a separate process beyond the resource consent process. That usefully, the consent includes the traffic calming measure in the vicinity of the playground, so that will locally bring down the speeds to most likely to 30k or less, which is considered a good outcome in terms of pedestrian safety. 30k is quite important, because 30k or below is when pedestrians and cyclists have a good chance of surviving a crash and not having serious or fatal injuries. The consent, there are road safety audits to be undertaken, but no guarantee of treatments along SUAV to support vehicle speeds of 30k or less. Then moving on to paragraph 14, this provides an update on the speed limit on main highway, and I agree there's no current plan for the speed limit reduction on this section of main highway along the site frontage. I can see that from the NZTA website as well as from the paper, so that's is public knowledge. Even when it was previously indicated by NZTA as a likelihood, there was no certainty. I do, however, note that the section of main highway with the 70k speed limit is short, around 700 metres. It starts after the Riverbank intersection and ends well before the Wairanga intersection. And between and is between two existing sections of 50k speed limits, already has a number of residential driveways with the full length of the northern side of the road zoned general residential. It's not a limited access road and has recently been modified to better provide for cyclists. While not currently anticipated, I consider that can be reasonably expected for the speed limit to be reduced to 50k at some point in the future. And then I've just taken the opportunity to just check on the traffic data because some time's passed. I've done a search of the NZTA crash database yesterday, and that's still showing only one reported crash since the expressway opened and the traffic flows on Main Road reduced. And this includes the Riverbank Road intersection and the Wairanga Road intersection. So, the ongoing safety record for Main Highway since the opening of the expressway is excellent. I've had a look at the traffic flows. The Mobile Road information is only an estimate, but it's confirming that we still have, well under half of the traffic prior to the expressway opening. So in summary, in the current traffic context, I remain of the view that a direct vehicle connection to Main Highway can operate safely and efficiently, and as per my August review, would have improved alignment with the district plan objectives and policies, including connectivity, road safety, and encouraging active mode travel.
Thank you, Harriet. Next, we have Monique Leith. Welcome, Monique.
Kia ora koutou, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Monique Leith. I'm a practicing resource management planner based here in Kapiti, the principal planner and director of Leith Consulting. I've been engaged by the residents of Moy Place and so to provide them with expert RMA and planning advice, and have done since the first job application was around. I have a full member of the New Zealand Planning Institute, and I'm an accredited RMA Hearing Commissioner with due endorsement. I've been practicing in Kapiti Coast and the lower region of the North Island for around 15 years. So today I will also be speaking to the pre-circulated document that was sent through yesterday, just specifically items 10 to 15. So that's firstly about the comments made by the applicant, which were made in a media statement to Otaki today, and sort of contributes towards the new information being provided and the report brought back to council. But some statements were made about that judicial review has arisen because council have failed to make the only available decision, and that by not passing the recommendation or motion, councillors were refusing to follow the law. These references by the Wakefield Director are a gross overstatement of the APA panel decision and the legal and procedural requirements of the appropriate legislation. The APA panel did impose a condition on the commencement of construction, requiring that council that they must first obtain relevant permission to use the local purpose reserve, and that's really common in resource management. You can't start construction until you've got all of your applicable approvals in place, whether it's a regional council consent or a district council consent, or in this case it's a resolution to be passed by council. They cannot start until they have everything in place. That condition was not a directive to council to make a certain decision that would be unlawful with this consent condition. So, just to recap, the process to obtain all of the necessary consent should have been explored and undertaken as a first step in the applicant's endeavour to undertake this development, not as a last step. And the APA were explicit in their advice to the applicant that they bear all risk associated with not having first obtained legal access to Moy Place. and just back into item 12 of that pre-circulated document, which starts to address the position of NZTA and council operational staff and the report brought back to council. Since the provision of pre-application advice to the applicant, right up until comments made to the APA panel, NZTA have maintained that their preference for access to the development as via local roads were available, rather than directly from a state highway, remembering that main highway is technically a state highway at the moment. And council have supported that advice because NZTA is still technically the road controlling authority of main highway. So where available is important because up until the 28th of November, it has been a possibility that road access from Moy Place has been available. But since that decision and resolution was made, it has confirmed that that access is no longer available. The application site does not have legal or practical access to Moy Place. Their only legal road frontage is to Main Highway. And so now that that 28th of November decision has been made, the applicant needs to go back to NZTA and KCDC and re-engage with those authorities on that basis. The report that's been brought back to council simply restates the advice that has always been given based on the fact that Moy Place is still potentially a possibility, which doesn't give due respect to the decision that was made on the 28th of November. The applicant is entirely lawfully able to rely on having an access from Main Highway, and neither council nor NZTA can refuse them access from that point. They do not have legal access to Moy Place. So if there's any insinuation that access via Main Highway is not possible, it is absolutely incorrect. Council NZTA cannot refuse a landowner from obtaining access from their only point of legal road frontage.
Thank you, Monique. Your time's actually up. Have you got much more to add?
Oh, sorry, just turn my captions on. I think that's it for me. Just
That's
covering
great.
those main matters.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Now we have James Unwin. Welcome, James.
Last time I spoke before this council, I read a summary of our case that I had provided in full the week before. And I'm not here this morning to read our case or to relitigate the settled matter. After our time with you on the 28th of November, the residents waited to watch the subsequent debate, to observe closely how our elected officials debated this topic. As you can imagine, we didn't agree with a number of the points that were raised in the debate, but that is okay. However, I did notice a couple of things. It was clear the pressure that was coming from senior leadership to vote in a particular way. And there was also plenty of robust discussion about the nature of law, about rules, and about correct procedure. Laws, rules, correct procedure. The law is clear on this process for dedicating the reserve. The procedure was followed correctly, and the vote was cast. So why are we here? Why have all the residents come this morning? Why have we taken time off work? Why are you here? The residents are not unaware. We can see the influence that the filing of the judicial review is having, the inferences made in recent media statements. But I put it to you that the residents are not intimidated. We're not intimidated by these tactics, and neither should you be. If your heart goes out to the residents, if you want to know how to honour the residents, then you cannot vote for this motion. Because any vote for this motion today is a vote against the original vote. I have witnessed the impact, the mental toll that this has had during this whole process on the residents. No one is in favour of this motion. Not the residents, not the community, not local iwi. But I tell you what I've also witnessed throughout this whole process amongst the residents. Resilience, tenacity, that the law matters, that procedure matters, and that voting matters. And I promise you, if this motion does not remain settled, that resilience and tenacity will not just disappear, even under oppressive and bullying tactics. We will take steps towards filing our own judicial review. We'll be looking at the law, fairness and reasonableness, and we'll be noting our concerns with procedural impropriety.
Thank you, James. Niall Payne.
Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Lyle toka wingwa. I'm not really speaking to notes today. I'm speaking from the heart. This piece of paper, I'm meant to be in Wellington Hospital today. I waited 4 months to get there. I had to cancel that on Friday. I don't know when I'll get back on track. And what I'm trying to point out is the toll that this has taken on people. It's nearly 2 years' work for me now. And also my next door neighbour. He got his EPA submission in, and he was passionate about this cause as well, and he passed away the day after he put his submission in. This has been a shocking process for us to experience. So, again, I would ask, why are we here today? The vote was 6-5. It should be 10-1, 11-0, in fact, because of the community support. I'm going to say a couple of things that are probably a bit rough. Now that we do have lawyers involved, I'm going to suggest that you pick your enemies. So you've got what I would call lifestyle butchers on one side, and you've got a fine community, my people, my residents here behind me. This is going to proceed. I have Jaden Matthews coming to assess my house on the weekend. I'm putting my house on the market to fund this. I'm going to move out of my community to save my community. I'm almost at the point of getting on my knees and begging you to retain the vote you've had, or those people who, the 5, to change your minds. But if I get down, I'll split my trousers and I'll need help to get up. I think that's all I wish to say. Yeah, that's all I wish to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Niall. We all sincerely hope you get back on track with your treatment. Margaret Turnbull.
Good morning, everyone. The plan to have a vehicle access to 137 houses go round past a children's playground is a recipe for disaster. This has gone through a democratic process already. That should have been the end of the matter.
Thank you. Philip McIntyre.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to Council once again. At all times, ratepayers and citizens demand to be led, not misled, by elected representatives and council employees. So why are we in this chamber again today, addressing this matter when it has already been settled by democratic process and binding council vote? Why, after 17 months, are we still being tormented by this council? Why is there a new dual access option on the table without any kind of RMA process or advice or proper consultation? Why does our well-being and quiet enjoyment count for nothing in the eyes of some of you here today? Why must we live in fear that our children and grandchildren may no longer be able to enjoy their park in assured security and safety? The Moy Place Road Reserve land was vested and set aside in a very different time, intention and circumstances. One that absolutely, most certainly does not look like the vastly different reality proposed today. An unfair, unjust outcome awaits residents in Moy Place and Sue Avenue forever if the land use is not voted to remain reserve. In November 2024, Mayor Holbrook succinctly told this very chamber, "We should decide this today. We have had extensive briefings, carried out consultation with the residents, and given all due consideration. The sooner people have certainty around this matter, the better." And yet here we are again. Why? So why are we here? Councillors are asked to do what is right and fair and just, as the Local Government Act demands of each of you. That you look after the residents and their interests, our children and grandchildren's well-being and safety, and most importantly, that you protect our democracy. Residents' lives have been seriously impacted by the arbitrary actions of Wakefield Group and Custis Consultants, who should have followed the sage iwi advice given to them at the outset, that a 33 main road entry is sensible and required. This option must be affirmed here today. We want our lives back. Our elected representatives, good people of principle, integrity, decency, and moral certainty, are asked, please uphold the values in your KCDC district plan where people matter. Their safety, well-being, and quiet enjoyment are of paramount importance and come first. Please, whatever you do, do not diminish ours forever. The Moy Place road extension must not happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. So we now move on to speakers around the coastal provisions in the district plan, and first up we've got Tanya Lees on behalf of CALM. Welcome, Tanya.
Thank you. To the Mayor, Chief Executive, Councillors, Community Board members and key council staff. I'm the spokesperson for CALM, a community-based advocacy group which represents members of the Kapiti community concerned about the council's activities around coastal adaptation. And since the last council meeting on December 5th last year, even more of us are watching on in confusion as we note that on today's agenda is a Section 35 review of the Coastal Environment chapter of the District Plan. Why is this monitoring report taking place? This clearly wasn't what was discussed at the last meeting. It isn't even statutorily required. It's just another waste of resources and yet another waste of money for the ratepayers who would have to fund it. We were promised a coastal planning change, so why not stick to your end of the bargain and stop using delay tactics? All of us here in the public gallery have come here in good faith, taken time off work, and quite frankly, you're wasting our time right now. The DeLonghi report is a risk assessment needed for the coastal planning change, but even that has had to be commissioned and funded by Crew, as a Jacobs report failed to deliver. We would also like to know why reference to the Jacobs report is still on our limbs, yet not the DeLonghi report. Surely that should also be added for balance. The second issue is that of who the stakeholders are, which are often quoted in council reports. Does this include consultants, for example, Jacobs, the Coastal Advisory Panel, Crew, whom we hold in extremely high regard, by the way, or the local iwis, perhaps? One would hope that the community would be the main stakeholders in all of this. After all, we pay your salary, elect many of you in to act in the best interests of the people, and are the most adversely affected by the decisions you make. We are also the lenders of the substantial debt accumulated, so we are major stakeholders. The third and final point is one which we have received a considerable amount of feedback on from members of the community. It concerns comments made by Kim Tahiwi, who was present at the meeting on December 5th. I quote, "From a mana whenua perspective, if faced with protecting our environment and protecting housing values, we're always going to choose the environment, no matter what." End of quote. This statement is extremely concerning as it shows a predetermined outcome, a bias towards the land but not the people. Is Kim speaking for others, or is that her personal view? Either way, for a person unelected, by the way, who has voting rights and influence around the table, it is our view that those voting rights should be removed. Her bias is unacceptable and an insult to the Kapiti community as a whole. We did try to contact Kim for further clarification, but were unable to find any contact details. Our question is thus tabled here instead, as she is on public record making this statement. In summary, the good people of Kapiti expect the council to act in good faith and carry out the work that was agreed upon. We fail to see how it's so hard to listen to what your ratepayers want. It appears that these are indeed delaying tactics to avoid delivering what the community wants and what you are statutorily obliged to do. Any attempt to derail the process will not be looked upon favourably by the people you serve. I'd like to end by reminding you that we're already in an election year, and wasting our money and not listening to what we want will show up in polling station results, which means you may well be out of a job if you fail to deliver. Thank you.
Salima Padamsey.
Could I have this table, please?
Right,
Welcome, Salima.
thank you. I know that it's 5 minutes, but if you let me have a breath or two, I might go to 6.5.
I shall allow that.
Thank you. So, good morning. I want to thank the staff and elected representatives for bringing Agenda Item 10 to my attention. This is significant to your coastal ratepayers. We have been eagerly awaiting progress on the Coastal Hazard Plan, but now there seems to be an obstacle thrown in your way. We urge that you get straight down to the business of Coastal Hazard Plan immediately, instead of diverting through unnecessary and time-consuming full document reviews. In front of you is a suggestion to review the entire coastal environment chapter. but you only need to concentrate on Objective D, coastal hazards, because the other objectives are already in operation. This is a bureaucratic time waster, and we are not sure why Council is trying to delay a progress on anything to do with climate change management. What we want is for you to complete the draft of the Coastal Hazard Plan provisions immediately. 10 months ago, in May 2024, the Council told us that within a few weeks, you determine a date for notification, a draft Coastal Hazard Plan, 10 months ago, and still not done. That same email said a full draft would be ready in February 2025. That's next week. It appears to be another goof. A month ago in December, the Council directed staff to prioritize the advancement of the RMA Schedule 1 notification regarding Coastal Hazard Plan provisions. However, today, you are faced with the suggestion to complete an unnecessary, energy-sapping review of the entire document instead of getting right down to Section D of the Coastal Hazard Plan change. Remember that staff 9 years ago, in 2016, promised the Environment Court to complete notification of the Coastal Hazard Plan change by 2020, and that it would be completed by no later than 2022. That deadline was 3 years ago and is long past. As elected members, I appreciate that you recognize the urgency of prioritizing this work in light of the Environment Court decision. So firstly, I would like to point out that Agenda Item 10.1 should read, Review of Coastal Hazard Provisions in the District Plan. I use the word hazard because the Coastal Environment chapter has 4 objectives, A, B, C, and D. Objectives A, B, and C are already established and in the current district plan, which was notified in 2021. They are operational. The only outstanding objective is D, and that is communities are not exposed to increased risks of coastal hazards. That's it. I would now like to draw your attention to paragraph 11.1 of the report. I was taken aback to see that the report prioritized a review of coastal matters under Section 35(2)A of the Resource Management Act. I assume that this is the first time the councillors have been made aware of this work, which is currently underway. In February 2023, 2 years ago, council staff invited CREW to participate in a Section 35 review and report. My email, which follows up on that invitation, of which you have a copy of, and I've tabled today along with other documents, outlines the 2 issues that CREW explained needed to be addressed to advance notification of coastal hazards plan change. Our explanation of CREW's priorities does not include a Section 35 report, and our email was quite clear on this point. Staff are suggesting they produce an additional report at what will likely be a substantial cost to ratepayers. This is entirely unnecessary for reviewing coastal hazards and simply delays the start of developing coastal hazard provisions for notification. What I had expected to see in the officer's report was the scope and timing of coastal provisions as mentioned in paragraph 14. These should have already been completed and presented to the council for adoption at this meeting today. Now I want to explain why the urgent work that needs to be prioritized in accordance with your December 2024 resolution only relates to reviewing and writing coastal hazard provisions for the plan change, not reviewing and rewriting all provisions within the entire coast environment chapter of the district plan. The coastal hazard provisions requiring review and change date back to 1999, as attached in the appendix of the officer's report. These provisions are 26 years old, and other coastal environment provisions are less than 5 years old. You must acknowledge that any coastal hazard provisions drafted prior to the 2010 update of the New Zealand Coastal Policy Statement are no longer fit for purpose and are recognized as insufficient, inefficient, and ineffective, which is what Section 35(2)A review aims to assess. In the PDP 2012 plan change, council staff had already determined that the 1999 coastal hazard provisions were outdated and needed to be replaced to comply with the New Zealand Coastal Policy Statement. In this regard, we disagree with paragraph 16.2, 16.3 of the officer's report. These matters are not linked. In other words, one is not dependent on the other. A Section 35(2)A report, as stated in paragraph 16.2, is not required to advance notification of a coastal hazard plan change under RMA Section 79(1). Furthermore, the time frame for you as a council to determine date of notification has now turned into an 11-month delay as of today. This officer's report, specifically paragraph 14, informs you that you will not receive any of this information of the review earlier than the next council meeting in April. I'm sorry, but this is just not good enough. It seems that the institutional or organizational barrier is obstructing the council from implementing a plan change, a statutory requirement that was promised in the Environment Court 10 years ago. So I have to inquire, and so should you as elected officials, what's happening here? Why can't this council deliver a simple and straightforward plan change? The Section 35 2A report seems to Crew to be yet another delay tactic, similar to the Takutai Kapiti project. The Environment Court's 2016 decision requires the council to establish a coastal advisory group in accordance with the council's earlier motions. That is not what the Takutai Kapiti entailed. The two groups have different scopes of work. The court issued no order for an adaptation plan. It made an order for a coastal hazard plan change and required that formation of CAG to assist with the plan change. Furthermore, the staff's recommendation to review all environment coastal provisions in the district plan of 2021 is yet another delay tactic. The elected members directed staff in December to prioritize a plan change that addresses the concerns of Crew and the Environment Court. Instead, we are now confronted with a report regarding a matter we informed council staff nearly 2 years ago that had nothing to do with the Crew's organizational purpose, specifically the coastal hazard plan change we urgently seek to complete. This situation is very disappointing. At this meeting, we urge you again to instruct staff to cancel any proposed work or expenditure on a Section 35 2A review as referred to at paragraph 11.1, and instruct staff to produce the scope and time of coastal hazards provision review as referenced in paragraph 14 within 10 working days for release to the general public. Crew wants council staff to provide a draft version of the coastal hazard plan change for stakeholder feedback by 30th April 2025 and notify RMA Schedule 1 of the change under RMA Section 79.1 no later than July 30th, 2025. This aligns the council further with the commitment to the Environment Court, bringing it closer to a fully operational district plan, and shows the public that the council stands by its voting decisions. From our perspective, this suggests that we can trust our elected officials that they interact with affected communities in a way that preserves their integrity.
Thank you, Salima. We've certainly heard two contrasting views on this issue this morning. Councillor Coe?
Thank you, Salima. You're a great asset to our community in this space. I want to acknowledge that. But look, where the rubber hits the road in this report is the recommendations. And you've given us a lot of information, which is needs a bit of absorption, I suppose. But you know, the recommendations form the instruction to staff on this matter. And I just want to be really clear, you know, for the benefit of everybody in this room. I would like to get your thoughts on what changes you think are necessary to those two specific recommendations in the report that would enable your suggestions to take effect. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. That's an interesting question. So a Section 35 2A report is not required under Schedule 1 of the RMA for notification. So if you do it, it's because you choose to do it.
I understand all that,
Yeah.
but today we need to approve some specific wording which forms an instruction for staff. And I'm wanting to help you here in the sense that, you know, if there are specific amendments we need to make to those instructions from your point of view, can you please advise us on what those might be?
Yeah, well, I'll read it to you again.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I would recommend A. So the recommendation is A, and that would be to instruct council staff to cancel any proposed work, which is recommendation B, and to make this a priority to make the coastal hazard plan change a priority before any other work is done. So it would be only A.
Only A?
Yes.
Right, thank you.
Thank you for that.
Mr. Larissy?
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick question. You didn't mention the DeLonghi report, which did come up earlier. Do you see that as kind of playing a role in this?
Okay, so no one here is from 2012 when this whole thing started except me. So I will explain it to you. So in 2012, the council commissioned a coastal erosion report, which is known as the Shand Report. And at that time, we said that the Shand Report did not meet the purposes, was not fit for the purposes of planning. So after, I don't know how many millions of dollars the council spent for an independent review, an independent science review, a high court review, they found that the Shand Report was not fit for the purposes of planning. And that was because Shand had put accretion at 0, had used the Bruin rule, had a PAL review, and was not in compliance with the New Zealand Coastal Policy Statement. So now we fast forward to the Jacobs Report, 2021 and 2022.
So, we don't really have time for a history of
Yeah,
all the
but I'm gonna
technical
just- 'cause you-
reports
yeah,
and,
but I
and
think you-
details that are contained in them, and they're not
Okay.
entirely relevant to the paper that's in front of us. So just keep the answer brief, please.
So the Jacobs Report, double counts inundation, uses the Bruin rule, is not peer reviewed, and is not compliance with the New Zealand Coastal Policy Statement. So you have the same two reports with a little different technical issue. So the only report that this council holds that is fit for the purposes of planning is the DeLonghi Report. So the last time you issued a proposal, a district plan proposal using the Shand Report, and as you can see today, we are back here almost 13 years later discussing it again. So it's up to the council if you want to use a report that is compliant or not.
Thank you. Next question from Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. Good question, Liz. If you look at your email, councillors, I've foreshadowed an amendment to the motion.
Okay, we'll discuss that when we come
Yeah.
to the paper.
Have a read of it. So you're simply suggesting, Salima, that we prioritise our statutory requirements?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah, so
simply what you're suggesting?
yeah, so the coastal hazard, the coastal environment chapter has 4 objectives: natural character, appropriate public access, development does not result in further loss of coastal dunes. So those 3 objectives are already in the current plan and were notified in 2021. So a 5-year review is not up. But what was left out and what was pulled out was that the communities are not exposed to increased risks from coastal hazards. So that's the only thing that needs to be put back into the coastal environment chapter. That's it. There's nothing more than that.
Great.
Thank you. Thanks,
Councillor
Salima.
Pravano?
Appreciate you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, thank you for Salima for coming along today. So just following up on my previous 2 councillors' comments. So in terms of A, it says approve commencement of a review of the coastal provisions in the operative KCDC district plan. Now, so what you're saying is that 3 of those parts have been completed?
And are in the current plan.
Yes, and so there's just one part, which is the coastal hazard provisions, which have not been completed.
Correct.
Just to be very, very clear on that.
That is correct, yeah.
Thank you. And I suppose B is actually about coming back to this council in April to consider the timing and scope of that review. And in many respects, that should be happening way before then. Is that your...
The provisions, the draft provisions for the coastal hazard should be done way before this. If you want, look, like any other council in this country, I'm sure the staff are overworked and underappreciated. And I think that what you need to now do is focus on the work that you are legally obliged to do in line with the court ruling, and then we're off your back.
Thank you, Salima.
Thank you, Salima. Okay, that brings us to the end of public speaking. Thanks, everyone, for your contributions today and for showing your appreciation. Move on to members' business. I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but Councillor Handford and I are both leaving early today to go to Carl's Tangi. So we'll be here another half hour or so. So any leaves of absence can be communicated to my office. I haven't heard of any matters of an urgent nature. There's nothing under item 9, so we move on to reports. And what I'll do is we'll just stay seated while the room clears, please. And I'll move on to the Moy Estate paper first, please, so that we've got time to consider that foreshadowed motion for the coastal hazard provisions.
And they drink from the Kool-Aid when Selima speaks.
Okay, so we're moving on to 10.2, dedicating local purpose road reserve as road. They're coming back in again.
Do you want to forward standing orders 25?
Have we got staff to present this, please? We can move along. Thank you.
25.7?
Yeah.
Madam Chair, oh, sorry, Janet. Can I just stand order 25.7, please? I'd like to lodge a procedural motion. My procedural motion would be to
Can you
to
wait
leave.
till we introduce the paper
Oh, sorry, I thought
and
you
then
had.
do that?
Sorry.
No, we'll just get the staff introduction
Oh, yeah,
and,
sorry.
then we'll move to that, if that's okay.
My apologies.
Thank you.
Kia ora. So you have a paper in front of you which effectively provides you with additional information based on a request at the end of 2024. We are taking the paper as read and are happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Before we go on, I just want to outline, answer a couple of questions from the public gallery, namely, why are we here today? And 10.2, as I said, dedicating local purpose road reserve as road. So we previously made this decision on the 28th of November. On the 9th of December, we received an email informing us that the applicant intended to lodge a judicial review proceedings. They also outlined in that letter that they were looking into a dual access option. So on that day, we had new information to consider after the decision that we'd made. So we had a briefing on the 10th of December, or a conversation really, as councillors, about the contents of that letter, and some other new information came to light around how many properties were previously planned as far as the early 2000s, which were going to be accessed through that site. So there were 3 pieces of new information. Under 24.6 of the standing orders, the local authority, on a recommendation and a report by the chairperson CE, or any committee or subcommittee, local or community board, may revoke or alter all or part of a resolution passed by a previous meeting. As we had more information, I decided as chair of this forum that the councillors needed to consider that extra information, reflect on it, and either affirm or change the decision that we'd made. To me, that's responsible decision making, and it's also wise management of council funds, because a judicial review is not free. It costs ratepayer money. So if we have extra information that we can put on the table, to me, we're obliged to consider that. And that's all we're doing today. Nobody's put any pressure on councillors to change their minds. We haven't even had phone calls. I just want to assure you of that today. We haven't had pressure from council staff. We haven't had any conversations or briefings since the 10th of December last year. We are simply reflecting on the new information and coming to a decision today. And if it comes to it, this will now go through a judicial review process, and they may or may not instruct it to come back to the table. It won't come back to the table for any other reason before that time. And you have my assurance of that today. So with that, we will move to the paper and the recommendations. But first of all, I'll take any questions from councillors. Councillor Cooper?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I'd like to understand Order 25.2, and I think would be pertinent would be C, that the item being discussed should be adjourned to a specific time and place and not be further discussed at the meeting. And I would suggest that time and place would be at a time after the judicial review is being completed.
Okay, are you moving a procedural motion?
Yes, I'd like to move that.
Okay,
Thanks.
so we have a seconder for that motion. As it's a procedural motion, there's no debate, so I'll put it to a vote. All in favour? It's a procedural motion.
Clarity about the motion itself
Okay.
again?
Okay, would you like it up on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
10.2, Moy Place.
We're on 10.2. I've
The numbers
said quite a
confuse
few
me
times.
about 25.
We're on 10.2,
Standing
dedicating local purpose road reserve as road, and we have a procedural motion to table this paper until such time as any judicial review proceedings are completed. Is that actually clear? Councillor Wilson, do we need it up on the screen?
Yeah, no, I'm not.
You
no, I'm
can't
not.
refuse a procedural motion.
No, I'm
and
just,
you can't debate it.
I'm just confused. That's all. I'm just confused about how this would help the situation, other than it guarantees
Well, if
a
you don't
review.
think it's going to help the situation, then you can vote
Yeah, I have
against
to
it.
vote against it. I don't think.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. We don't have any debate. It's actually quite clear what the motion is. The motion is, no, you don't. There's no debate on a procedural motion.
Yeah.
No, there's no clarity. Once a procedural motion is put, it goes to the vote.
Yeah.
Can we pop it up on the screen, please?
I'm not sure how it helps. That's all.
Okay, we have a motion in front of us. It's been moved by Councillor Cooper. It's been seconded by Councillor Cofford. All in favour, please say aye. Against? No. That's lost, I think. Okay, so we're calling a division on that. All in favour, please raise your hands.
Just bear with me, please, as I go around the room. So these are voting in favour.
In favour of it lying on the table.
Thank you. So I've got Councillor Cooper, Councillor Cofford, Councillor Warwick, Councillor Pravanov. Those against? Worship. Councillor Wilson, Councillor Coe, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Handford, Councillor Spires. It's defeated.
Okay, so we'll move on to the paper. Do I have any questions about this paper from elected members? Councillor Pravanov. Councillor Cofford.
Yeah. Oh, Madam Chair?
Yes.
This matter is before the judge in the High Court. Can it be relitigated? Some of us have been named in the statement of claim, and some pretty severe bullying, in my view, from the plaintiff. And compromise has asked to have it discussed. In fact, is it not a contempt of court to be discussing these issues while it lies before the judge?
So I'll get staff to answer that question, please. The Chief Executive.
I'm quite happy to answer that, and our Chief Legal Counsel is also in the room. Basically, no, Councillor Coford, you're not in contempt of court.
Well, is counsel in contempt of court for discussing it?
No, you're not.
Okay. And so the matters that are raised in the statement of claim can be brought up and talked about?
Today you're being asked to consider what is in the report. We're not being asked to consider the judicial review that is before the court. You have a paper that's in front of you. I would instruct staff not to engage in any conversation in this meeting in respect of a judicial review.
Thank you, Councillor Coford. Anything further? Mr. Larissy.
All right, thank you. So just on that, so just for pinpoint clarity, is this matter or is this matter not sub judice? I'm just using the legal term just for clarity.
Yeah, so maybe you might want to explain that for your.
That means the matters
fellow
before
elected
the
members
courts
in the
and
room.
it generally has legal implications for public discussion. The normal standard would be once a matter is sub judice, as elected members, we wouldn't touch it. And our communication to the community would be it's sub judice and not up for conversation. So to me, this is a principal issue. Could we have some legal advice?
Yeah.
Yep, certainly. Sarah will
Ms.
answer
Watty.
that for us.
We'll just get a microphone which is working. I'll get some advice.
Right, Trini, kia ora. So I support Darren's advice. So council was being asked to further consider this matter, and the substantive information in the report is the information that council is able to consider. It wouldn't be appropriate to go into the ins and outs of the judicial review and the statement of claim, per the earlier question. So care needs to be taken in relation to the matter before the court, but it's open to council to further consider this matter.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I have a couple. Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. Mr. Larissy?
Thank you. Yeah, no, that's useful, Sarah. So I guess it's either up for discussion or it's not. And seeing it is up for discussion. So the basis for this coming back to the table was that new information had been received by council, and my understanding is that the new information that was received was that the developer was intending to file a judicial review. Is that correct?
It was one of the considerations, but the content of it wasn't the consideration so much as the confirmation that council was going to undergo the process and the costs associated with that.
Right. Which on the day of decision was pretty much certain. Is that correct?
It was suggested as a possibility.
Okay, councillors
but it
agree.
wasn't certain. And there's, pretty much certain isn't certain.
I would suggest it was no less certain, but I'm not going to labour the point. I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions here. One is that part of the reason this is being relitigated is on the basis of new information, and it's just been mentioned, a judicial review. So in terms of adding more new information, we've heard this morning that the residents, should this be overturned, that the residents have indicated that they will take a judicial review. And so I'm taking that on its face. I took that as a sincere statement, and so
I
it
think
looks like there's
you're edging
judicial
into
review.
debate. Is there a question here?
Well, the question is, the general question is about whether or not are we going to accept that as new information? Well, I am.
As with any decision that council makes, it makes those decisions with all the available information, weighing up everything that they've heard in the paper,
No.
in public speaking, and then make the decision as usual.
Okay, and the other one, just some clarification. We had the statement around is this potentially in contempt of a legal proceeding, the sub judice argument, and the response to that would appear to validate the position that council's original position was a legal position. And that's why we can still legally discuss it today.
Again, it seems like you're debating.
No,
We're
no,
in
just
question time.
just a question if somebody wants to argue that. And I've said F off before in this forum, and so I'll say it again. I have no idea at all why F is there. Why would we be, and it's a question, why would we be relitigating that decision that was made last time? Why would we even be discussing that decision? That's of no relevance
Is
whatsoever.
that a question for staff?
Yeah, it's a question for, do we think F should be there? I don't think it should.
I had this discussion with the chief executive. I think F is a little bit unusual in terms of a recommendation, and I'm happy to change that to notes. Yep. So can we change, rather than discusses, can we change it to notes? Is that okay? Right, so when we move the motions, we'll just move that instead. Yeah, good point. Councillor Pravanov?
Thank you. So I took very good note of your introduction, Janet, in terms of why you brought this back to the table. I also know that earlier this week you made some public statements, and I will quote what they say.
Is this a question?
Yes,
for
it is.
staff or for me?
It is for you.
Well, actually, questions, I have been kind of clarifying some points, but questions of the chair isn't really appropriate. What we're doing now is we're in question time, asking for clarification around any issues in the report or any issues that have been brought up in public speaking.
I'm actually asking for clarification of some of your reasoning.
If you want to challenge my reasoning, you can do that during debate.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pravanov. Any further questions before we move on to the recommendations? Which I'm happy to move, A through G.
Okay, no, that's all.
And then I. Have you got a question, Councillor
I
Halliday?
was actually going to be asking exactly what you're doing now, just what would be taking by way of votes A through to G and J, and then H and I separately. But you seem to be doing that at the moment, so I'll leave it at that.
So I'm moving A through G, and then I and J.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, could I?
With the amendment to F, notes instead of discusses. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Coe. So, right of introduction. So I've already explained during the introduction to the paper why this is back in front of us today, and I stand by the comments that I made when this first came to the table. My position is further strengthened by the extra information that's come to the table, that prior to this decision coming to council, there was the prospect of 200 properties being accessed through this road, through these roads. What came to the table last time was some quite different information to that the people who live in this area lived in the area on the expectation that there would be very few properties that were accessed through these roads. So to me, that new information further strengthens my position that this should go through today. I acknowledge that it's really hard for the residents. It's not going to be a cul-de-sac anymore. and change is always hard. But it's going to be a road that people drive along, and it's going to allow the development to proceed. Any argument that there's an alternative access on State Highway 1 is relitigating the resource consent and the design of the development, which isn't our job. Our job is to decide whether or not legally this road is fit for purpose and whether we should allow the activity for which this land is set aside to occur. And it's a hard decision, but it's a pragmatic one. And we're sometimes here to make hard decisions. It's really hard to listen to the public speakers who come and tell us how this has affected them. But at the end of the day, we need to make the decisions that are best for the wider community. And so that's why I'm moving this today. The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. If you bear with me, I'm just going to talk some history from my perspective of this journey that we've been on. Part of that is because I was part of the 6 who voted to not make the road reserve a legal road. And so I think it's important that I'm able to share, because I didn't in that meeting, share my journey and the understanding that I'd come to and what the decision I made. So last year in our November meeting, as part of the debate, there was a motion put by fellow councillors to let this decision lay on the table until more information that was requested during debate and questions was able to be provided. That motion was put and it ended up being a 5-5. Hence it was overturned. But those questions and concerns, from my understanding, were never answered in that debate. That ended with the vote 6-5 to decline turning the road reserve into a legal road. I don't think, and up until we had a meeting in December as councillors, councillor-only meeting. At that point, the judicial review was confirmed to us by staff that we had received notification from the developer that there was going to be a judicial review lodged, and it would be lodged before Christmas. As part of that meeting, the questions and concerns that were raised in the November meeting were raised again, including one where there was new information from the developer in the notification of JR that they were considering a dual access option, which had never been placed on the table before. It had never been discussed in a formal setting. So there was new information that was available to us at that moment. There was also the new information, as the Mayor has already said, about the number of sections that were considered as part of the resource consent process. So there were 3 bits of new information that were brought to that December meeting after our November decision. And I felt that in that meeting there was support around the table from all of us as councillors to bring a new report back to this meeting in January that covered off that new information to ensure that it went into the public domain and we were able to confirm or deny the decision that we made in the November meeting appropriately. So I'd like to stand here as one who voted initially to not support the change, to thank our staff and the Mayor for following through on what I felt was the will of the table at that meeting in December. And we sit here today because of that. Now, I know we've all had a long break and sometimes we can forget some of those conversations. That is my recollection of what took place in that December meeting. One of the things when I stood for council, being my first time, I made a commitment in my election campaign to listen, to learn and to lead. I have endeavoured through my time at council this triennium, which we've only got about 6 months left, to follow through on that commitment of listening, learning and leading. One of the things that I have listened to and I have learnt pretty strongly and is highlighted through this process is the tension that exists for us as elected members of carrying the legal and regulatory responsibilities that we carry as governance of this organisation called Kapiti Coast District Council, and our responsibility as elected members of this community to represent them well. That is a tension that will always exist in this role, and I'm not sure that there are any easy answers to solving that tension. This issue highlights that more than any other for us that I've experienced in the last 2.5 years, because a decision that we made in November is going before the courts under a legal and regulatory process. And potentially we may be pulled up by the courts to say that we have made an inappropriate decision in that context. Yet I stand and I hear from our community, and we've heard again this morning, that their view is that we made the right decision in November and that we should stand by that. If that doesn't highlight the tension that this group of people that sit around this table, the challenge that we face in making these decisions, then I don't know what does. In the November meeting, I walked into that meeting with the expectation that I would vote for this, for the motion that was on the table, the recommendation that was there, which was to turn the reserve into a legal road. That was where I was going when I walked into the meeting. I had discussed that with the Mayor and some of our fellow councillors in the briefings and other things that we've had, that was where I was going. But every time we walk into a meeting, we walk in with an open mind. Well, that's the challenge. And in the meeting, I changed my mind. And I voted against what I had previously said. Again, I want to thank staff and fellow councillors and the Mayor for the fact that since that decision, I have not felt any pressure from any of them to change my decision. I've had questions asked of me. I've had people who wanted me to explain why I'd made my decision. I had blindsided the Mayor with that change of mind, and I got the look that was appropriate for that at the end of the debate. While there has been no pressure from outside, my decision was lauded by many and questioned by some. But let me tell you, and if you talk to my wife, even though I've had a break, that internal pressure has remained. Of have I made the right decision? Did I make the right decision? Are we heading on the right track in regards to Moy Place? Even last night, I was awake, reconsidering and considering and looking at my own internal decision-making process. I find it ironic that Moy Place and Sue Ave, when they were first established back in 2006, 2008, was celebrated by our community as being the first roads in Kapiti that had both the English and Chinese signage. Now we are centred of, not celebrating the moment, it's becoming a problem for us. If, and this is the thing that I sat on this morning as I woke up, if the developers and council had built a road to the boundary and not created a road reserve back in 2006 to 2008, we would not be sitting here having to give permission for the development access through that thing. It would already be connecting. We would not have room to make this decision now. And I look at local roads elsewhere in our district, most major local roads, and they have many multiple intersections that come onto them within close proximity to each other, accessing cul-de-sacs. The difference here with this situation in Otaki is the main highway is still considered a state highway, but it won't be in a couple of years. And so decisions we make today, are we making them? Are we planning for them? Are we living with the future state in mind? It's a question I still have. In a briefing that we received in October from our legal advice from Buddle Finlay, one of the comments that's made in there is Wakefield Developments take all the risk in relation to this decision. It was an acknowledgement of the fact that we carry all the weight of this decision, but they take all the risk. So I sit today still with that tension that exists for all of us. One of the things that sits high in my mind is personal preservation. I've got an election later this year, and we all have. So the voice of our community echoes long and hard, especially if you want to get re-elected, which at this stage I do. We'll see what happens at the end of this. The other thing is I'm personally here because I think we need to look after the ratepayer dollars. We need to ensure that we're not spending money inappropriately and that we're not wasting money. The challenge for our residents is we sit in a district that is growing and developing, and all of us live with the risk of change and development everywhere across our district. There are many situations that exist across our district because we are a growing district. So whatever happens today, I wanted to give a bit of a history of my story and encourage us all to vote according to what we feel. However I vote today, I'm very aware that I'm going to disappoint someone and probably upset someone else. And then there'll be other people who'll probably raise a glass and say, well done. That's the tension I exist in, and we're going to have to vote accordingly today. Good luck, everyone.
Councillor Wilson.
I had a question. I didn't want to make a speech just yet. The question was, when you moved A through J, right?
G.
G. Oh, and I and J. Right. So we're actually discussing I, and the corollary would be J, and if that's defeated,
discuss any of
then
it.
H. So we're just so we're clear about.
A to G and
Yep.
I and J.
Right. Okay. And if I and J are voted down, actually these need to be taken separately because some of them are just noting. And
I'll
then,
take them separately.
And then I is the big, that's the big deal, right?
So we'll take A through G and then I'll take I when we come to the vote.
Okay.
We're
And
debating all of them.
if I is voted down, then we automatically revert to H. Is that correct?
No, it just we just remain with the status quo.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to speak now?
No. You know me, I'm quiet, reserved.
So that was
sort.
just a question?
I'll come back later.
I'm not sure who's first. Mr. Larrissy.
All right, thank you. So being the chair of the Raumati Community Board, I guess I should note that what happens in Moy Place obviously is outside of our area, so not something I feel I need to have a strong opinion about. But we do support the Otaki Community Board and note that the entire community seem to be supportive of one view. So we do support that. I've spoken to other community board members, and as a group, we are behind you, Otaki, as a community. But there is another issue, and I've raised this previously, that isn't about the decision itself, but how we make the decision, okay, and on the basis on which this decision is before us today. And those are the issues that I'm more interested in thinking about. I'm going to open my lunchbox a little bit and just share a little, just to help contextualise where I'm coming from. So I've been in this role on the community board for, what are we now, 2.5 years or so. Truth be known, I don't really enjoy it, and I haven't enjoyed it. It's not something that I consider fun. On almost every metric, I'm worse off for doing this role. I earn a lot less money. My reputation has been tarnished. I've lost customers, I've lost friends. Even at this table, I'd say there's relationships that have been strained at times. Somebody asked me recently, well, why do you do it? And actually I was really stuck for an answer. Why do I do it? I seem to be driven by the sense of duty that I can't explain to people. So against my interests, I do this role, and I do it as well as I can. I'm driven by doing what I believe is the right thing, whether it's in my interests or not. And I can point to examples where I've not certainly gone against my interests. But one of the things that does keep you going in this sort of role is that occasionally you do something that's of value. You do something that's right. Not everybody agrees with you, obviously. Sometimes people don't even know it's happened. Sometimes even if they do know it's happened, they couldn't give a shit. Couldn't care less. but you do it anyway because it's the right thing to do. Sometimes as part of that, you even get something to the council table, and everybody in this room knows how hard that can be. It can take people a couple of years to get something finally landed. All sorts of hard work. No sane person would do that sometimes. There's so many barriers, so many reasons not to bring something forward. When you do, sometimes it doesn't go in your favour, and you have to suck it up. You got to put your big boy and girl pants on and say, you know what, didn't go my way. And that's just how it goes. We all bring things forward knowing that that's the risk, that when it comes to the table, councillors might exercise their democratic power and vote against it. Sometimes, though, there are those moments, and we've all had these, where the council table says yes. And boy, given everything that I've just said, how good does a yes feel? Man, it feels good. To do that and know that councillors might turn round and decide otherwise, I'm sorry, but that is just detrimental to every bit of trust that exists in this environment. I wouldn't bother any of what I do if I didn't have trust in this council. So for you to tell me that anything we do, that we bring to this table and get over the line, despite all the hurdles and all the realities, only for the fact that it might turn around in another month's time, I'm sorry, anyone who's going to tell me that that's the reality, I just can't trust you. I've sat at home and I've said to myself, if the trust and confidence that I have in this council is broken, can I realistically remain in this role? And normally, I think somebody in my position has to say, no, you can't. So I've seriously sat, there's been times in this role where I've gone, bugger this, I shouldn't bother. But this is one where I've gone seriously. I have to genuinely consider whether I can remain in this role if my trust and confidence isn't there. Now, there's two parts of that. The very fact that it's come to the table is destructive of trust and confidence. But if the original decision is overturned, then even more so. My issue, given that I'm driven by this strange sense of duty, is I don't think that my community who elected me and who I represent is better off if I do step down. And so I'm in a real dilemma. I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. This is the position in making this decision, Mayor, that you've put me in, and I'm only going to speak for myself. Now, you do have the power to bring something forward for redecision. I've got an issue with the way that you said that, a resolution can be amended. This isn't being amended, it's being changed, but we won't get into the semantics. The fact is it's coming forward. So, where was I going with that? What did I just say before I distracted myself?
Yeah, just have it got me.
Yeah. So the reason, Mayor, that you have brought this forward, yes, you do have the power. I'm going to assume that that's right, that you can do this, but the fact that we can do something doesn't always mean we should. There's a difference, there's a distinction between law and morality, and we hope that they align, but they don't always do. If you're going to say to me you did this because you can, I'm going to ask, does the why stack up? And I haven't heard a single thing here in closed or open discussions that convinces me that the why stacks up. So I'm going to repeat a comment. I think the fact that this is even at the table today is utterly egregious. And I'm ashamed even to be having this conversation. I'm sorry. Sometimes judicial review is just the cost of democracy. And that's the reality. We're going to land there either way, and we could actually have two separate judicial reviews. So you guys decide as you may, and I will think as I do. Thank you.
Mr. Butler, could we please refrain from responses from the public gallery? We're now in debate. Thank you. Mr. Butler?
Sorry, Liz,
I've unfortunately got a chairperson's.
Oh, okay, Councillor Coe. Thank you.
Oh, I thought there was other people ahead of me, sorry. Thank you, Bede. In response to what you have said, I guess, you know, standing orders wouldn't provide for a relitigation of decision if it wasn't appropriate for that to be able to be done. So I do take issue with that. Right, okay, I've missed the point, all right. Look, this is clearly a very emotional issue. I am, as I've stated previously, a very logical and rational and practical person. I also stand here as a person, or sit here, I suppose, as a person who is here to make what is the best decision for our community at large. And I think we need to take into account that there are a number of stakeholders in this decision. And when we sit at this table, we do need to think of that we are here to represent our community at large. Some of us, yes, have specific wards that we take care of, but really our role is to act on behalf of the community as a whole. We have heard this morning and on previous occasions from one group of stakeholders on this issue. There are a number of other stakeholders. The developer is a stakeholder. The tradespeople who are potentially relying on work from this project are stakeholders. The homeowners, the people who have an expectation of being able to purchase affordable housing in Otaki, of which there is a shortage, are also stakeholders. Ratepayers across our whole district are stakeholders in this decision because they will foot the bill of any legal expenses that are incurred. So as we consider this decision, we need to take all those different perspectives into account. Also, we have people who drive along Main Road Otaki who have an expectation that the safest possible options will be put in front of them as they take that journey across that road. We have, in Moy Place and Sue Avenue, in the overall scheme of things, a relatively small number of people and that who are directly affected. The other people I'm talking about are also directly affected and in much larger numbers. We have people who have purchased property there with in the knowledge that there was potential for a road to be put in at the end of Moy Place with up to 200 house lots on that land. If they were not aware of that, then perhaps should they have been? Did they do their homework? And I want to relate a conversation I had with Councillor Wilson just yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before? You know, who said to me, you know, if somebody purchases a house next to an airport and then rings up council the next day and complains about the noise in the airport, you know, what would our response be to that? This was a known situation, or should have been known, by the residents of Moy Place when they purchased property there, that there was likely to be a road through at the end of Moy Place with access through to a large tract of land which could potentially hold up to 200 house lots. So my perspective on voting today is to consider all those different stakeholders. I believe the developer had a reasonable expectation based on work that had been done to date of an approval of a road going through the end of Moy Place and a reasonable expectation that they would be able to bring effect to the consent that they've been given. I think, in my view, it would be it is most likely that a court would uphold that expectation of the developer. I think there's the issue here, as Lawrence has touched on, about growth in our district. And we have seen numerous instances of this, just even in this term, where people adjacent to bare land have struggled with the idea that there is going to be development on that land. The Otaki Reservoir is an example, the development at Otahanga is an example. And I think it's just the reality of the growing pains of our district, that anybody who has a house adjacent to empty land can have an expectation that their peace and quiet is may well be disturbed going forward, because we require empty land for growth, for development. It is unreasonable to expect otherwise. You know, we cannot withhold growth in our district for the sake of the people who are currently resident here, who struggle with the idea that their situation will change. So, you know, in summary, you know, it has always been known there would be a road there. It has always been known there would be housing developments there. There are a number of different stakeholders in this place. We have heard from a small but vocal minority on this issue. We have not heard, we have heard from the developer, we haven't heard from the other stakeholders here, and I'm particularly concerned about ratepayers across the district who we know are struggling with the rate increases that have been, that they've had to be subjected to in the last few years. That is a real concern. We should be thinking really hard about costs that are incurred by council, which in the end will be borne by ratepayers across the district. So I will be voting in favour of the motion as it stands today. Thank you.
We've got quite a lot of lights on.
I'm going to leave, but I just want to say, as
No,
I know, we are not against the development
Please.
at all. We are not against the development. We just are against using a small side road to have 200 houses going on.
Thank you very much. We're taking quite a lot of time each, and Sophie and I are desperate to get to this tangi today, which has already started. So could we please keep our comments a little bit briefer than the ones that have already been? Just my kind request. But if you need to take the time, just take the time.
Do you want me to go?
Yeah,
okay, cool. All right.
Hey, it's even broken too. Okay, so the clear thing is the Otaki Community Board, we represent the community. We don't have a vote at this table, but we are allowed to talk, so thank you very much for that. Just let's go over a couple of things. So just as Councillor Coe was talking there about some of the other stakeholders, just like to point out a couple of things. Yes, the developer has a stake in this. They always were going to have a stake in this. The builders, tradies, bits and pieces, they were always going to have a stake in this, no matter what, where the access goes. So that's a moot point. The residents who could live in these houses, again, that's a moot point because of the fact that this development is almost likely to go ahead 100%, and the community has fully supported the development, has never said anything about not wanting this development. The only sticking point is the access. Okay, so we've got a piece of road reserve which was put there in place for our when that Sue Ave and Moy Place was put there. It doesn't have to become a road. There is not a requirement for it to have to become a road. It can become a road. And that's part of the thinking here. And any reasonable person might be able to say, yes, the access can come off what is called Main Highway. I might note, Madam Mayor, that it is not State Highway 1 anymore and has not been since the opening of the expressway. And that will be a local road once Wakakotahi is finished with the revocation side of things. With this coming back to the table, there's been some beautiful speeches by Bede and others. I agree, it is a poor look to the residents. It's a poor look to the ratepayers, for the people that think outside just of the costs. It's a poor look to just look like we're giving in almost immediately with a JR being put in place. The other question I have there is, within a legal budget, does this fit within the legal budget anyway? Or are we saying this is an extra cost that we don't have any capacity to absorb? And I'm not saying let's go and spend $100,000, $200,000. I think that's not a great idea either. But it's the balance of what would it cost for this development to be changed versus the JR costs. And to be honest, reading through the JR, I don't get a sense there that that is a winner, that judicial review either. But again, I'm not a lawyer.
Could you wrap it up, please?
Yep, coming to it. Everyone else has had nice long speeches. I'm trying to be concise. Okay? So the main points there are, we've got this new information. Does this and should this change people's minds? There's a couple of things that are annoying, like the speed limit remaining at 70. Thank you, the Coalition. Or no thank you, the Coalition. I drive that road probably 4 or 5, 6 times a day. And at 50 k's an hour, it's a much better road. Very safe. I would have no issue personally with there being another intersection coming off that. And it's just something that we're probably going to need to look at in the future to bring it back down to 50 k's the proper way, or however we're allowed to. So the Otaki Community Board supports the residents. We haven't had any other residents anywhere in Otaki just come to me and say, we think the access should go through Moy Place. And so that's where we stand. So we urge all of the councillors here to reject the motion that's on the table and leave us at the status quo. Thank you.
Glenn Olsen.
Yeah.
Paraparaumu Community Board.
Yeah, thank you. Just want to say that I can't speak on behalf of the Community Board as we have not discussed this, so I'm talking as the chair but not as behalf of the Community Board. But on that, really, I can keep it short because a lot of what I've got to say has already been said, so I want to reaffirm what Peter said because I completely agree with what he said there, and especially about, it's not a pleasant role to do. And you come in thinking it will be, but it's definitely not. And, and it is a hard one. But we did come in, and I came in as well to represent our community, to listen to our community, and to represent our community. And I think that's really important here. As all elected members, that's what you came in for. Now, keeping it precise, yes, there is a developer, and this developer, as a result of this, may not continue. They may do. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean this land will not be developed. At some point, it will be developed, these houses will be created, and the access will probably go where it should be through the old main highway. So we can't say that we're stopping a development. In fact, everyone supports the development itself, and whatever happens here, it won't stop that land being developed. It will be developed at some point, and those houses will become available to the greater community. So that's really important. And the last thing I'm going to say is, and I apologise if I did hear this incorrectly, but I did hear what I believe is the chair's introduction. I believe I heard the statement, will no longer be a cul-de-sac, instead of may not be a cul-de-sac. Now, if I'm correct, and it is will not be.
Apologies,
no longer,
I will alter
sorry,
that to
just let
may.
me finish. And that's not my last sentence, then I'll finish. And if that's true, then I've never heard a more blatant predetermination statement before a vote ever.
Okay, Michael Moore, Waikanae Community Board.
Thank you. Along with my other elected chairs of the community boards all over the coast here, we are really proud to have a voice around this table and a conversation about this and contribute to it. This has never been from these residents about NIMBYism, not wanting anything in their neighbourhood. They strongly support the ethos of this development, I'm sure, and having more housing available to the community as Otaki grows. Everything's changed since Moy and Sue were put in. This road through there, which was State Highway, up until about 2 years ago, when the expressway and the Pika Pika to Otaki section went in, everything's changed. That road reserve that was put aside 20 odd years ago was there for an entirely different world we live in now. This road will be given back to this council as the road controlling authority very soon, within 2 years, probably shorter. And it will be 50 kilometres along there, there's no doubt about that. So I would urge councillors not only to reject this, but to understand what this area will look like once it comes back to us, and that an extra road access off that section of which there will be in the revocation process, traffic lights put in at Riverbank Road, will make this road another local road. So I urge people to do this, and this applicant to be a good neighbour, you know, and be a good neighbour. And some good faith mediation has never been entertained. 2 days before the 28th of November meeting, these residents got a message to come and meet. And that's not good faith, that's not genuine. So there's been no opportunity for them to sit down and come up with a genuine conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Shelley?
I think I've moved up the list because other people had their lights on first.
I'll just go in the order that the lights come on. It doesn't really matter.
So for me, growth in Otaki is going to happen, and actually we need houses, that's okay. But it's important to this community that it's done well. And this area around the development has a huge potential. It ticks all the boxes. It's close to the railway, it's close to transport, close to shops, walking distance, blah, blah, blah. But it's about actually looking at the overall area and planning well and looking after our community. And I think the community board has done that really well. And I would urge us to decide, look at the urban panel and actually start looking at developments and how they can enhance the community rather than detracting from a community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Warwick. Councillor Coфord.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair, and Councillor Warwick. That was music to my ears to hear the urban panel mentioned, and we wouldn't be sitting here today discussing this if we had the urban panel, which would sort this out before. But look, everybody's defending this settlement, this development, and it's poorly designed. It's really overcooked. It has it's come in with a fistful of resource consent requirements. It has some of the houses have excessive site coverage of the dwellings. The boundary yard and living area encroachments, they're overcooked. There are too many houses. But putting that aside with an open mind, the reserve land is actually accommodates mature trees. It has a watercourse. It's landscaped, and all of that's going to be bold. It is actually a natural town built between the two, or natural vegetation built between the two developments, and it's an area that the EPA have actually said you're not going to take the construction vehicles through Moy Place. You're taking it off the main road, and that's a point I'd really like to labour, because they've actually said themselves taking it through Moy Place is dumb. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Councillor Halliday.
Beg your pardon.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Here we are again. To begin with, I've got to admit, I take on board everything that's been said here. We come in with an open mind. But as be so, I must admit, I'm not that comfortable that this has come back. But in regards to Lawrence, I fully understand and, of course, experience the tensions that puts us in the positions that we're in and the decisions we have to make. I'm Ward Councillor for Parapara Umu, and we've been through this. We've been through this growth. We've had cul-de-sacs, and they've now got drive-through roads with hundreds of houses on them. I've lived in them. Traffic is nowhere near as high as what's been predicted to come through them. That's actually been, in my opinion, quite sparse. But that's growth. That's what it's about. And it's now Otaki's turn. And forward planning was put in place to accommodate this growth as seen here. For me, it's that simple. Why should this group be treated any differently than the people who are down this way? It's part of growth. We'd all love to be in a cul-de-sac that has about 30 houses in it. Be fantastic. But the road was designed to accommodate a bigger loading than that. Plain and simple. You look down that street, it's like a boulevard. So that's pretty much me. To me, this is pretty simple. We said our bit last time. If this has got to go through judicial review, it goes through judicial review as part of the democratic process, as pointed out. But for me, this is the price of growth. I'm sorry, we'd all love to have those sort of places, and brutal as it sounds, if you're not happy with that, you'll need to move. I'm in the situation myself where I have a development going in right next door to my place, 6 apartments going in. I'm not happy about it. My wife is certainly not happy about it, and that's the decision we'll have to make. And there's nothing I can do about it either, with regards to the rules that are put in place from a higher level. We, as councillors, have to make this decision at a higher level. Okay, we make an oath at the beginning of our term, and as Lawrence has pointed out, that puts us in the way of a lot of tensions. And I appreciate the community boards going to bat for the local communities. We aren't in that situation, unfortunately. We have to weigh up all sorts of considerations, both financial, both legal, both et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And my decision has been balanced, taking all that on board. I haven't appreciated some of the comments that have been made on social media around that, quite directive. But as Pete's pointed out, that's the lumps that we have to take when we put our big boy pants on. So I'll be indicating that I'll be just maintaining my decision as I made at the last time we made this decision. No other information's come to me that would change that. Thank you very much.
Councillor Hanford.
Yeah, kia ora. I'll keep it very brief because I feel like most of the things that I would want to contribute have already been said. But just to say that if the road does become a legal road by way of it either being the main access way to the development or even as part of a hybrid model, just to stress the need for mitigation measures to ensure Moy Place and Sue Ave remain as safe as possible, and especially for the young people, the kids who use the park, that is of paramount importance, and also for just for people to be able to move around on foot and also on bikes and scooters and the like. So traffic calming measures, footpaths, roundabout, whatever ends up being assessed to be the safest to ensure that the kind of feel that obviously the Moy Place and Sue Ave residents really value, whatever way this goes, is able to be maintained and supported, ensuring that safety of kids specifically in relation to the playground is upheld and really seen as a priority in this conversation. So that was the only new thing that I wanted to add to what has already been contributed in debate.
Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you, through the chair. So as you all know, I'm a second term councillor, and I think long and hard before I make my decisions, and I take my role very seriously. And we all did that on the 28th of November. And the Mayor even made the comment on social media earlier this week. All councillors made an informed decisions in trying and difficult circumstances. But here we are today, making this decision again, and to me this is a very, very slippery slope when we make our best decisions and it comes back to us. So we are now here, as I said, to make this decision. This is not about stopping housing in a particular location. It is about weighing up all the information that we've heard, how it is going to affect a small part of our community, the wider community and the implications on that, and looking to see if there are viable alternatives. So today we did hear new information from the residents in the terms of where there is a viable option for access from State Highway 1 or when it gets changed into a local road. We've also heard that if we do not maintain the decision that we made last time, that there is going to be another potential judicial review. So to me, it makes full sense to continue with the outcome that we had last time, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you. So I was just saying that if we do go to recommendation H, I've already foreshadowed that I'd like to make an amendment to that, and you all have a copy of that. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. I was ambivalent about this paper coming back. On the one hand, I agree with what Councillor Pravanov said, but on the other hand, it gives us an opportunity to get it right again. And one of the things that we've heard today that we didn't hear last time is the Raumati Community Board, the Paraparaumu Community Board, the Waikanai Community Board, and the Otaki Community Board are all completely united in their opposition to this. One of the things that I took some umbrage about that was in a newspaper report where the developer castigated councillors for the decision that they made, said it wasn't legal and it was there was only one decision that could be made. That was actually wrong. In law, it was wrong. They also aimed at me, I think, because I did the hideous mistake of mentioning morals and ethics. But if we don't act morally and ethically, then we shouldn't be here. That's the only reason we're here, actually, is to act morally and ethically within the boundaries of the law. And that's what happened last time. We did that. Who are we here to serve? Who are our masters? Well, I would suggest that they are the residents of Kapiti, not individual developers. And I would just say, I'm not against development. I'm absolutely not. And there's no indication from the developer. At any stage has the developer said, if we don't get this road, we're walking away. They have never said that. Of course they're not going to walk away. My God, they're going to make millions and millions in profit. What might happen is they might lose one house if they have to make an accommodation for the road. But then they might just add another couple on top somewhere, right? They won't be losing any money by this at all. The residents, if we are not here protecting residents who have been ratepayers in this region, by the way, for a long time and have contributed significantly, if we're not here protecting their interests, then we're in the wrong job. What I would say is that we have heard already today that the decision that was made last week was a legal decision. We're being asked today to overturn a decision that was legally made. The matter is already before the court with a judicial review. If we vote on this, if we vote to overturn this, in my view, we are almost criminally undermining the judicial process. And all we would be doing in that case would be doing the developer's bidding. And for me, that's wrong. I won't get too much into the technicals of the project itself, but we did hear from Harriet Fraser, 27 years, a transport planner, traffic engineer, who says that the going onto the main road aligns with our current district plan. I agree, she's right with that. Monique Leith, another highly respected planner and commissioner, the same argument. James Unwin said that the case was fully declared at the last meeting. There is no, and this has to be made clear, there is no substantive new information that we are receiving today. There are absolutely no new information in this paper that we weren't aware of. And the stuff that is so-called aware of is debatable. That how many houses there were going to be 25 years ago, there's debate around that. There's not presented as fact. So, but lastly, I want to really talk to Margaret Turnbull, and Margaret pointed out the toll that this has taken on residents, and we need to be acutely aware of that. We overturn this today, we send these people back into a bloody appalling situation for goodness knows how long. Council made a legal decision. We just need to reinforce that decision. The developer has said, we're going to court. Great, let the court decide. That's me.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more lights. I'll just have a very brief right of reply. Correction, I should have said maybe a through road, not will be. I'll correct that right now. Look, I've read the room. I'm going to think long and hard about ever bringing a decision back to a council table based on new information. The fact is that we all agreed to that. The first I heard that councillors had any problem with this coming back was last week. Councillors have had all summer to talk to me about this if they've had a concern, or they could have brought it up in the briefing on the 10th of December. The fact is that we all wanted to look at the new information, and we all wanted to take a new situation into account. And it's a perfect, no, there's no point of clarity, this is a right of reply.
You've given the public a wrong impression about something there.
Well, this is my recollection of events. I've looked through my emails. I've searched through my emails. Okay, I will clarify that discussion was with councillors, not with community board members. Okay, yep, that's a fair point to clarify. Yeah, I do agree this decision was legally made. It's a decision, but it's still challengeable under a judicial review. But we're not sitting here in a resource consent decision. Whether or not this is the best access or not to the development isn't the decision we're here to make. It's been through a resource consent hearing, and it's been deemed through that process that this is a safe access for that development. Whether or not another one is possible is not our job to decide here today. And I just want to reiterate that. We're making a simple decision to turn some land that was set aside for a road with due consideration of the number of properties that were going to be behind there. It then went through a resource consent process. We're now in a simple procedural decision to turn a road reserve into a road. We're not turning a park into a road. We're not bulldozing a house. We're turning a road reserve into a road. And we have some new information to bring into the equation to make that decision today. So it is really important that everybody votes with their morals, with their ethics, with their community hat on, and weigh up those considerations as each individual member sees fit. And I will respect what each individual person decides to do today. And I ask that everybody does that and acknowledge that this is a difficult decision. And every person who's sitting around this table is here to do the best for our district. Nobody's here for any other reason. So with that, I'll put it to the vote. So actually we had to take it in parts, didn't we? So we'll do A through G, which is notes and considering new information. So A through G, all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? They're carried. And then we have I, which is the substantive motion, approves the dedication of Lot 72 DP 400543 as legal road, currently held as local purpose reserve road, as shown in the attached report. And then J, which is pretty much follows on from that, authorises the Chief Executive to take all necessary steps to give effect to this resolution. So I'll put I and J to the table. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against?
Division.
Okay, we'll do a division. All in favour?
All in favour, hands up please. Bishop. Councillor Spires, Councillor Hanford, Councillor Coe, Councillor Halliday. It's 5-4. Against? Deputy Mayor. Quiet please so I can take the vote. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Kirby. Councillor Coford, Councillor Bravanov, Councillor Warwick, Councillor Wilson. Sorry, mate. It's 5-all.
No, it's not.
Is it not?
Councillor
1,
Kirby.
2, 3. Oh, my apologies. My apologies.
There are 11 of us here today.
I missed you. Sorry. Councillor Cooper.
Okay, so that's defeated. We'll take a short break now and No, we don't need to because because H will happen automatically. Okay, we're going to take a short break now, and then the Deputy Mayor will take over after the break. Before we do that, can I encourage councillors please not to make work programs for council on the fly? Maybe we can take information and